I want to welcome everyone to our February update for AgWind and the USDA REAP program for distributed wind. So this square code, I believe, would take you to our form and our tool that we're going to walk you through today for checking the wind resource on a site. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. And you're also welcome just to send in your address and we can generate a report for you offline. So we're focusing mostly on Oklahoma today, but we are happy to help folks outside of the state as well. It's a national program. There are some ineligible areas, mostly urban areas. So make sure to check your address on the USDA map if you're interested in applying. And our program today is funded through a TAG, Technical Assistance Grant, with the Oklahoma office of USDA. And just a disclaimer that we're not representing official views of USDA. This is just a DWEA AgWind presentation. Did you move that forward? I wasn't quite done there. Sorry. So we're going to run through some introductions. We would love to have anybody that's participating put a little bit about yourself in the chat. If you have any specific questions or where you're patching in from today. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Bergey to do a kind of 101 with some updates about USDA funding. And then he's going to do a quick demo of the tool. And for anybody that wants to do a little bit longer session on that, we do have office hours coming up. We'll talk about that. I think it's the third Friday of every month. And then I'll talk a little more about just how you apply for REAP grants and the SAM registration process, some upcoming deadlines, and we'll try to wrap up within the hour. Looks like Mike is ready. So we do have a little form that we would love anybody on the call today just to give us a little bit of data about yourself so that it's for our reporting. We still have some reporting requirements that we got to fill in for USDA. And just, again, a little bit about why you're here. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Are you unmuted? Okay.
Let's see. So I just sent you a request to share.
There we go. You probably have to do that. Okay.
I have it.
There you go. Awesome.
Right.
Okay. I forgot to mention David Dunaway is here with me, and I see a few others on the AgWind team as well. Hopefully they're typing in the chat. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Heather. Heather is the executive director of the Distributed Wind Energy Association, and I'm the board president. Also the president of Bergey Windpower Company, located in Norman, and we're one of the major manufacturers of small wind turbines here in the U.S. So what I'd like to do is give you a quick overview of what distributed wind is and isn't, and then as Heather said, I'll talk about the AgWind wind report tool that we can use to quickly assess the feasibility of wind power at your site. It's a powerful tool to help you decide whether distributed wind is right for you. So what is distributed wind? Well, it's not wind farms. It is the use of one or more, usually no more than just a few, smaller wind turbines at a facility. Could be a home, a farm, a public facility, but it's behind the meter so that the production from the wind turbine, the electricity produced, is first used in that facility, the home or farm or business, and then any excess that is produced is sold to the utility, and different utilities in different states, there are different rates that they pay for that excess electricity. In Oklahoma, if you're under 25 kilowatts, it's net metering. On both of the investor-owned utilities and several of the rural co-ops, but because the rural co-ops are not regulated here in Oklahoma, it's really up to the rural co-op to set the buyback rate. If you add storage to these systems, you can have power during power outages, but with just the wind system and no storage, they do shut down during power outages. They're not backup power. So what are the benefits of distributed wind? Well, the first one and the most important is that it's a least cost renewable technology in areas with very good wind resources or with good wind resources. And they don't have to be spectacular. You have to put wind farms where the winds are spectacularly strong because they're competing against coal and nuclear and natural gas. But distributed wind systems go where people live and work. And the wind resource just doesn't have to be that strong for it to have very good economics. It does leverage the technology strengths here in the U.S. and a lot of the equipment is manufactured here. We've had a very robust R&D program funded by the Department of Energy, and it's helped bring down the cost of smaller and medium-sized wind systems from a number of different manufacturers. It's complementary to solar in that it produces power at night when solar, of course, does not, and can supply extra power during the winter when solar is weakest. So a combination of wind and solar is a particularly strong way to have a lot of renewable energy, but wind does complement solar very well. And most important to farmers, we hear, is that it uses up very little land. So the footprint is much less. We're not taking valuable, productive land out of production, and we find that that's a popular feature for distributed wind with the farm community. Now, there's a vast difference in the scale of the machines that are used primarily for distributed wind. There are some very large megawatt scale projects with megawatt scale machines. And we'll actually see an example of that here in a minute. But most of the installations are much smaller. So they're going to be in the 10 to 10 kilowatts to 1 megawatt range. You can get a sense of the size of those machines on this graphic. Let me give you a couple of examples. First one is from Lone Wolf, Oklahoma, and that's a project of 15 kW turbines. They were installed in 2023. They received a substantial REAP grant, a rebate, which helped cover a good bit of the cost, and we'll cover. I will show you the suite of federal incentives that are available here in a moment. Saves about $27,000 a year, and importantly, produces as much energy as 105 kW solar system. So with far less space. So it's a very good technology for ag operations. Another 15 kW installation. This is just one turbine, FTS Enterprises up in Nebraska. I included this one because with the investment tax credit and with the USDA grant, it had about a 2-year payback period, which meant that this unit has already paid for itself. It was about $100,000 installed, but the subsidies are robust enough that the payback was very attractive. A larger project with two 100 kW turbines at a dairy operation in eastern Colorado was installed in 20, I think it was, let me move the thing here. In 2016, produces about 60% of the dairy's annual usage. And they had this was kind of a neat project because the Rural Electric Cooperative was extremely helpful in doing all of the interconnect and didn't provide any roadblocks. So the industry was particularly pleased with this particular project. There is a lot of potential for distributed wind, a lot of unmet potential. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is one of the national labs under the U.S. Department of Energy, has done a couple of studies that have shown that the potential for distributed wind is at over 50 million or around 50 million sites, and is enough capacity, has a capacity potential that's equivalent to all of the generation currently installed in the U.S., and as much as the potential for offshore wind. So it doesn't get distributed wind has not gotten the attention that offshore wind is, or wind farms, but we think over the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to be a major part of the making supplying clean energy for American growth. One of the things we like to point out is that offshore wind is mostly along the coast, of course, and serving large populations, but distributed wind is strongest in the Midwest and serving rural applications. So to put a little somewhat of a partisan bent on this, it's strong in Trump country. I mentioned that the Department of Energy has helped reduce the costs of distributed wind. Here is one example. There are many others from different manufacturers, but this is a company that over about a 5-year development period, they were able to lower the cost of energy, and therefore the payback period of small wind technology by over 50%. And these kinds of technology advances are helping small wind and medium scale wind be cost competitive with imported solar. I'm sure you've heard of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. It was very important to our industry and to our customers because it provided a long-term extension of the tax credits, and it also provided a more robust grant program from the USDA. And let me cover some of those. They're important to this industry and your potential use. So there was a 10-year extension of the residential and commercial tax credits at 30%, plus then a 2-year phase down, going from 26 and then down to 22%. Importantly, if you are a business, the commercial projects also qualify for a 10% adder for domestic content. The domestic content needs to be, I think, this year over 50% for that. And there's also an additional 10% adder for being in an energy community. And I'll discuss that in just a minute. Of course, the installations qualify for the 5-year accelerated depreciation, or if you're eligible for the Section 179, you can depreciate that in the first year. Very importantly, to non-tax paying entities, which previously had not been able to use, of course, the tax credits, the IRS IRA legislation included a direct pay, elective pay option for public agencies, nonprofits, and tribes. And in this case, you'd file with your 990 or other tax filing a form that would then lead to the Treasury sending you a check. So it's just like a rebate program. You don't have to have a tax appetite to enjoy the tax credit benefits. And if you are a company, the investment tax credit that you earn can be sold to another company. Typically, that's going to be at something of a discount, say somewhere between 80 and 90% cents on the dollar. but that means you don't have to have the tax obligation in order to benefit from the tax credits if you're a for-profit company. I mentioned the energy communities. This is a map which is produced every year by the Treasury Department or the Department of Energy. They both take credit for it. And essentially what it does is say that if you are in a county that has had either a closed coal mine or a closed coal power plant, or you're in a county that's adjacent to a county that has had that happen, you can qualify for an extra 10%. There is another qualification, though, and that is that the unemployment rate has to be above a certain threshold. And so, curiously, even though Oklahoma gets a fair amount, has a very high percentage of its GDP coming from fossil fuel industries, and therefore would make that qualification one of the qualifications, the unemployment rate has not been high enough, or has been too low to qualify. So in 2024, a number of counties in sort of the southern half of Oklahoma have been added to the map, and perhaps when they publish the 2025 map, there'll be more counties. But those areas in pink for Oklahoma and other areas of the country, or in green, get an extra 10% on their ITC. The USDA REAP grants have been extremely important, as I've said, to the deployment of distributed wind throughout the ag sector. Some of you may be aware that the REAP program goes back to 2002. And in fact, one of our federal representative, Lloyd Ritter, when he worked for Senator Harkin, was one of the principal authors of the original Section 9007 legislation. So it does go way back, and historically has offered 25% grants up to 25%. So it was somewhat higher in prior to the start of this year. It's now reverted back to the 25%, and there is a window for grant applications through March 31st. But then there'll be a pause for the second quarter, and they won't be accepting new applications again until July 1st. Although there is some uncertainty because the new administration has left that up in the air as to what USDA will be allowed to do. Under the IRA legislation, there was a provision or a set aside for underutilized renewable technologies. This is because most of the grants over the last decade have gone to energy efficiency projects, and particularly to solar projects. And the way the scoring is set up in this competitive application process, it has favored the cheapest technologies. And distributed wind has not been the cheapest. But over the last couple of years, the underutilized technology tranche has meant that most wind applications have been funded. We're trying, the DWEA is working with the House and the Senate to try to establish the underutilized technologies tranche in the Farm Bill. And if we're able to do that, it will be very helpful to our customers and to the distributed wind industry. There's a lot up in the air right now. Like many federal programs, some of the payments are on hold, and DWEA doesn't know any more about that than anyone else. But here's what that subsidization looks like for 2025. And I'm just pulling some numbers, example numbers. not there are, of course, a wide range of costs of installing wind turbines, distributed wind turbines of different sizes. But if you had a $125,000 project, you would earn a 30% basic investment tax credit. You might be able to earn a 10% domestic content or a 10% energy community bonus. And you would, in either case, be able to take the depreciation. And so when you add those up, your incentives reduce that down to about a $60,000. Uh, uh, they add up to about $60,000. Then you can get a REAP grant of up to 25%, which is $31,000. And so that leaves you with an out-of-pocket uh, uh, cost of $33,440. If you compare that to a rural home, which only gets the 30% ITC, you can see that a ag business is particularly well off in terms of federal incentives. So that's the coverage of distributed wind. Let me very quickly now take you through the desktop feasibility tool that I mentioned. And this is based upon a program that's been around for a while, but has been used by specific manufacturers. But DWEA has been able to make it into a generic tool that covers a number of different machines and different sizes, and therefore allows the user to find something that fits your needs. So the tool is based upon a mapping system from Microsoft Bing and a worldwide wind resource map from 3-tier of Isala. It's important to understand that the definition, the area that we have the wind resource for is a square 5 kilometers by 5 kilometers. So it's not very good in complex or hilly terrain, but in the Midwest, we find that that resolution is fine and gives us good predictions. So what the tool does then is allow you to put in an address, and you can do that either with a street address or a Latin lawn. You also put in the tower height, and then you click a button and you get the average wind speed at that height of tower. And then you can add some other tailoring in. Turbulence factor, Weibel K is a way of accounting for the difference between a coastal and an inland site or a trade wind site. And then wind shear exponent, and then particularly important is altitude, because a wind turbine at sea level produces more energy than one at say Denver, because the air density is less at Denver. So you're going to put that information in, and here's an example that there's a turbine at the governor's mansion in Oklahoma, and so we've put that in. It's returned the Latin lawn, and it's returned an annual average wind speed of 12.39 miles per hour. And we've adjusted the other parameters, and here's the result. This is just the performance result. And so you've got and we put in the altitude, and this is predicting that the turbine would produce an average of 2,700 kilowatt hours per month, or 32,000 kilowatt hours per year. The model also allows you to put in utility, the cost of the value of the electricity, the tax, the incentives that are available, the capital cost, the yearly maintenance costs, other financial factors, and it'll return, the net present value, the internal rate of return, the lifetime cost of energy, and the payback period. So as I said, it's a very good tool for doing a preliminary assessment to determine the feasibility of distributed wind at your site. There are a number of turbines that are available on a scroll down selector. Companies Bergey Windpower, EOCycle, ESP, EWT, General Electric, Northern Power Systems, Pecos Wind Energy, Rise Energy, Siva Turbines, and SkyStream. And you can see that the sizes range from about 2 kilowatts up to 1,000 kilowatts. These are the companies, the representatives, and where they stand on products certification status. Certification is important because the turbines must be certified in order to qualify for the federal investment tax credits. So that's the quick overview. I know that Heather's going to talk more about this, but hopefully this gave you some sense of the range of products that are available and why you should consider distributed wind to reduce your electric bills. With that, Heather, I'm going to turn it over to you again.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And while I'm pulling up the rest of the slides, I think I only have about 10 more. If anybody has any questions, you can either unmute yourself or type it in the chat. And I did ask David to put a couple links there. Oh, that's the old one.
I will take the opportunity to let my fellow Oklahomans know that Bergey Power builds turbines in Norman, Oklahoma, and we welcome visitors. So if you happen to find yourself in the Norman or Oklahoma City area, do come by and see how we build them.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about our technical assistance support here that's available. And did ask David to put a couple of links in the chat for our AgWind tool, which you can see here, the free wind evaluation, as well as Mike mentioned that the grid we have right now is pretty large. There's a couple other tools with the federal labs, Pacific Northwest Lab and the National Renewable Energy Lab, where you can look up your address as well and kind of compare the wind resource and make sure that you're putting in the right value there. So we do offer site screenings. We can train installers how to run the tool, and we can just run it. I think it's advancing on its own. Anyhow, I wasn't quite finished here. And one thing that the tool does, if you put in enough inputs, it'll spit out a report that you can add to your USDA application. So that's part of the, I'll show you where that goes in the application. And we can also connect, we can forward your information if you want onto the manufacturers and other DWEA members that are interested in working with potential customers. And just a few of the eligibility criteria, it's very similar to REAP in general, but we do want to make sure that we're working with folks that have good wind on their sites. And so here for Oklahoma, you can see the darker green, more trees over there, less windy, but pretty much anywhere the yellow, orange, and red, the western half of the state, great wind. So pretty much if you're west of Oklahoma City, you don't have to worry too much about your micro siting, but if you do have any kind of structures or trees, it's good to have some setbacks from those to make sure that you're getting into the good wind. So you can either fill out this form or there's an online form if you want some help. We just really need the a good address or lat long for the site. And it helps to know if you're looking at offsetting residential use or commercial use. And if you know anything about your power bill, your electric rates, your electric usage, that helps with the evaluation as well. So this is just a little bit of an overview about the REAP process for 2025. A few updates came out recently. So before you even get started, we really highly recommend that you talk to your state USDA coordinator, the energy coordinator. You can find those through the REAP website, which hopefully David can put a link to that in the chat so that make it easy for folks. And also getting some quotes. I usually recommend people get at least 3 quotes from different equipment providers to make sure you're getting good equipment, the best fit for your site. And you also do want to talk to your utility, make sure you can interconnect to the grid. The SAM registration, will go into that a little more. That takes a few weeks, so you want to get that started right away. And then just start assembling all of your documents that you're going to need to submit. So your utility bills, some other forms, pretty easy to fill out, showing that you have access to your site, either ownership or a lease agreement. And actually, this is a little bit not correct about grants.gov. I don't believe you can submit through there quite yet. So you still have to either email it or take it and mail a hard copy into your state office. So definitely make sure that you, allow yourself enough time before that March 31st deadline. And we're even recommending, if you want to make sure you get in the cycle, the sooner the better. If you can get it in February here, that's more likelihood of getting the award. Okay, and it is a reimbursement type of program. So you have to show you've outlaid the money, and then you'll get reimbursed 25%. So just about, I think, 16 steps. It's really not that hard for a federal application. The SF-424 form is just a few pages. Those of us that fill them out a lot, I can usually do it in about 10 minutes. But if anybody needs some help with, it does have instructions attached to it. And there's a lot of the blanks you don't actually have to fill in. So I like to download the fillable one that shows the required fields. It's great if you can have a whole year of energy bills. Sometimes you can download those from your utility. And you do usually want to have bank statements or documentation of a credit limit or something to show that you can fund the balance of your project. Make sure that you have property available for the project. And the project narrative can be very short, a page or 2 bullet points, doesn't have to have a lot of prose. This technical report, though, usually your equipment provider can help you out with that. And then the installer proposal, they would provide you that part of it with the quote. And okay, number 8 here is what we can do. We can spit out a nice PDF out of the AgWind tool. Okay, a map, you can go on to Google or Bing and zoom into your property, put a little X on it to show where you think the wind turbine will go. Some photographs is really good, especially to show from different directions where the wind is coming, and just make sure that there's not a lot of obstacles. Your manufacturer will give you the data sheets. Usually you can show the electric rate on your utility bill, or on their website, you can show the rate schedule. But you should be sure to look at any demand charges that are sort of fixed fees, so that those parts of your monthly bill would not be offset by the wind. And then interconnection agreement, if you have net metering in your state, or if you have a standard form with your utility to fill out, USDA likes to see that. Now this 14, they do want to see your tax return for your business. So it says it may be required, but it's best if you can go ahead and provide all of this so that it's a complete package. They just want to make sure that your business is established and is going to be running in the future. And then the environmental review, this is also fairly high level, just to look at any possible endangered species in the area. You don't have to do the full environmental review, but having some photos, looking at trees. There's a lot of interest in bat habitat right now. So that's something to just keep in mind if you're near water. And then these last three forms, again, pretty easy to fill out. Just, basically just go through the questions and they're pretty straightforward. So any questions yet? We can have questions at the end. But the SAM I mentioned, that stands for System for Award Management. And UEI is kind of like a social security number for a business. It stands for Unique Entity Identifier. So really recommend start this process. Maybe give yourself, an hour or so, or half an hour over a couple of days each, because it is very detailed. Well, the one thing that you do want to make sure you have handy when you fill it in is your banking information, because they want you to go ahead and connect with your account number to be able to receive funds. And I would say if you're aiming for the March 31st deadline, try to get this started if you can by next week, or at latest March 1st, to give it a few weeks to process through the system. Okay. Oh, yeah. So Mike mentioned that there will be a blackout period between April and the end of June. That was in the Federal Register. So we are anticipating the program would reopen July 1st. So if you missed the March deadline, try to get your SAM started by the middle of May. And as I mentioned, you definitely want to talk to your state USDA coordinator. They can guide you to their local recommendations. And yeah, usually you want to personally deliver your hard copy if you can. You can do an email, but just make sure that it gets through the system with large file attachments. And the cutoff time on the end of the cycle is 4:30 in your local time zone. So don't wait till 4:29 to send it. Probably try to get it in at least a day ahead of time. And then when that next cycle reopens, we do expect the next deadline would be September 30th. Okay, this is just a little recap on what Mike was showing with the tool. It kind of helps rapidly look at sites and helps to just think about where, if you can't do it on your land, maybe you could look around your community and see who you might partner with. Okay, we do have office hours coming up. The next one, let me look at the calendar for February. Is it this Friday, or it'll be the 21st? Okay, so a week from Friday. You can register there. I think we have them going out for the next few months. And again, there's that code to check your wind. I think my last slide. Oh, just a thank you to USDA. We do have some other funding as well. And we just really appreciate all the partners that have participated in this project. So with that, check the chat if there's anybody that wants. Oh, we sped right through all our slides. We are going to post a recording. I apologize if any of you were on the November one that we didn't get the recording brought down from that. Okay, Andy Rose, you have something about Wyoming.
Yeah, I thought I would just mention that every session, it seems in Wyoming, there's always some changes or proposed changes. It generally does not pass, but once again, there's this proposal to greatly modify the net metering. So I put that out there.
Andy, we do see tax on net metering and just interconnection policies in general throughout the country. The pendulum is sort of swinging away from net metering right now. Of course, we think it'll swing back eventually as well. But yeah, not surprised to see that. And good luck with getting that one not heard in committee.
Well, Mike, I was going to ask you if you were familiar with Oklahoma's net metering policy right now. Is it statewide?
So as I mentioned, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma Corporation Commission has a policy of if it's under 25 kW, there's monthly net metering. But the rural, and so that applies to Public Service of Oklahoma and Oklahoma Gas and Electric, the two investor-owned utilities in the state. But the majority of the rural areas are rural electric cooperative territories, and there the Corporation Commission does not have jurisdiction over them, and so they're free to set their own policies. The largest co-op in Oklahoma, Oklahoma Electric Co-op, headquartered here in Norman and serving central Oklahoma, does have a 25 kW and under net metering policy mirroring the one of the investor-owned utilities. But other co-ops may have it. I don't know. You'd have to check with the co-op.
Yeah, it's utility by utility generally. I see Oklahoma does have some statewide interconnection policies up to 300 kilowatts, so that's helpful. And Pace, you have a comment in here about CDFI. Can you remind us what that community, what the D stands for? Development, yes.
Yeah, financial institution. It's a nonprofit bank, basically.
Great. Are they active in Oklahoma?
Yeah,
oh, great.
Is Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee.
Great. Do you know if they've done any wind turbines, if they've done financing for wind turbines?
I do not know if they've done those yet.
Yeah.
I know that their kind of sister org has done quite a bit, I think, of at least solar in California, but I'm not sure about wind.
Okay. Great. That's a good tip. Do we have any other questions? I was going to say, Mike, I know you showed screenshots, but did you actually show a live version of the tool yet today?
I did not.
So we have a little time if you don't feel too pressured.
I have questions about using it, and
oh yes.
and maybe I could show, for example, what I've got open.
Okay, let me answer Deb's question here, and then you are in the tool right now, Pace?
Yes.
And you put an address in? Okay, cool. Let me just go right back here to the checklist here for USDA. So in general, on interconnection for a REAP application, yes, here we go, number 13. So they are looking for at least that you've put in an application for that, and there's a process. You don't have to have the interconnection agreement approved by the utility in order to apply. They just want to see that you've started the process. So hopefully that answered that question. And let's see. I'm going to try, if I stop sharing it, will you be able to share yours? Okay. So you've put in your address.
This is
This is
Jenny's.
great. This is a user test live.
Yeah, this is Jenny's
I love
address.
it. Okay.
I'll note that you can zoom in, and you can also move the red dot around.
Okay. So hit the plus button. Yeah. If you want to hit, there you go. That plus button if you want to get closer. There you go. If you decide, oh yeah, you don't want it right in the middle of all those trees.
Well, it's 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer, so it doesn't have to be exact.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so it would be around there.
Good.
If they're going to install one, and then.
And we don't have the wind rose here, but that's something else you can look at when you're doing microsighting to see what the prevailing wind direction is. I'm guessing probably most of the wind's coming from the northwest and west.
I'm sure
that area. But,
So southwest during the summer and north from during the winter are the prevailing wind direction.
There you go. There you go. Bidirectional.
As is, right? And I can run that model.
That's looking good. So do you know your utility rate? I think that's one of the inputs on the next screen.
Well, this is turbine production, so we'd have to back out.
Oh, right, to the financial analysis.
And go to financial analysis, right? And
now
this it does not have much more in pre.
So it pre-fills some of the numbers based on the turbine size, the pull down menu at the top.
This it didn't pre-fill. I put these numbers in right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't mention, we do have a user guide posted with some prompts that you can verify because, prices are quite volatile right now. So you might want to, double check things with a installer.
Yeah, I'll have to find out exactly what the usage is, but let's just put 100 down.
Yeah. Right. If you can consume all of the power on site, then obviously that you get more value for on-site use.
10,000. And then let's say yes to energy community. That was defaulted to no. And let's just say that there's an interest loan of 40,000. I don't know.
You'll need to check yes on the loan. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And you might up there where it said the rate for if you scroll up just a bit, there's the rate for overproduction.
Okay.
So I can't recall, Mike, if is it good to put a number there so it's not zero? So at least 3 cents, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something
like that. Yeah.
So if Pace has put in looks like 10,000 kilowatt hours per year. If the turbine produces less than that, everything would be at the current cost of electricity, and anything over that would be at that lower rate.
And you put a 1-year payback on your loan. You might want to bump that out to at least 5 or 10.
Yeah, I will do that.
A little better. Yeah. It's looking good.
So while Pace is working on this, I'll mention that hidden behind all of these simple screens is a pretty complex calculation that takes the power curve, the certified power curve from the manufacturers, and then integrates that against the wind resource. And I'm going to use the probability of occurrence of different wind speeds. So it's something that it's kind of a fancy spreadsheet back behind this that does the integration and makes it all look very simple. It's a more complex calculation than a solar calculating energy output from a solar system.
Oh, 2.4-year payback period. Wow. That's pretty good.
based on the information. So I think I would be very interested in talking with you all about auto-populating a little bit more of the information.
Mhm.
Um, like depending on the turbine selection and depending on like that would actually suggest the total cost of the system
Yeah.
and things like
We're
that.
we're a little reluctant to do that because it's a construction project,
True.
and
It's
and
gonna
so there's a wide variation, and there's even a variation between the Midwest and the East Coast and West Coast.
yeah.
Um, so it's difficult to do just a one size fits all capex on that on
But yeah,
any of the turbines.
definitely a range maybe.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's a way you can turn that into a PDF. Of course, you'd want to show it to your installer and make sure it's, you know,
Yeah.
believable and accurate. But
We
see, that
want
was pretty quick.
we want to talk to the manufacturer
Three-page report.
dollar
Yes,
about getting the numbers
Yeah.
exact.
everything.
So yeah,
Yeah.
all the manufacturers on the list have access to the tool. So if you call them up and refine the estimates and the economics and all the details and get something that's pretty close to what you can expect.
Okay, we have a couple other questions here. I saw Mike, you have your hand up, and there's one from Paul in the chat.
Yeah, thanks,
Go
Heather, and
ahead,
thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
Nice to see you.
It's great to see my
Yeah.
my old friends. I
Yeah.
guess I've known you guys for about 20 years, and
That's
thanks for
right.
the shout out to Lloyd Ritter and Senator Tom Harkin. I'm really concerned about our political climate right now and where both investment tax credits and production tax credits stand for not only distributed generation, but utility scale generation and, drill baby drill. I won't get into the politics of that, but first of all, thank you. And oh my God, is this a DWEA desktop feasibility tool one of the coolest things I've seen in years? This will give some certainty to some people that are looking into distributed wind and take away some of the guesswork. And as a friend of mine once said, this is slicker than snot on a doorknob. And so this is the coolest thing. And I want to thank the people that put this together. I'm going to be down at the in Oklahoma City for the National Farmers Union
Oh,
convention
great.
Right.
in the middle of
Excellent.
March, and I have spent the last 10 years with the National Farmers Union in plugging farmer-owned wind and farmer-owned solar and making sure that the distributed part of it is written correctly, that gives the farmers the right to control their own property, to do their own wind and to do their own solar. And how far is Norman from downtown Oklahoma City?
15
Very
miles
close.
right down the
Okay.
interstate.
I'll
So
be there for a few
yeah.
days and I'll get in touch with you, Mike.
Absolutely.
And I love that tour that you're offering. My question is, you listed the state energy coordinators, and I saw at the bottom of the page that was updated in like October or November.
Mhm.
Aren't those political appointments, and
No,
would those be current today, or will those jobs be replaced given the current appointments, or will those still be good? I just don't want people to try to reach out in those.
The state, yeah.
Yeah.
The state directors were political appointees,
Yeah.
and those are gone. And whether the replacements have come in yet or not, I couldn't tell you. But the contacts listed are career employees of
the
USDA.
energy
They
people.
they should be there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then your crystal ball. Do you think moving forward the red states are taking great advantage of these production and investment tax credits? Do you think
Correct.
that they will allow Trump to get rid of these, or do you think we'll be safe? If you have a crystal ball, Mike.
That's
Thank
a
you.
$64,000 question, isn't it? So
It certainly is.
I can make a guess. I think the consensus amongst the professionals, a lot of people a lot smarter than me, and with their fingers closer to the pulse in Washington, believe that the investment tax credits are safe because there's so much industry based on it that it would just be such a jobs killer that in Trump territory, that's not likely to occur. I think the far greater risk is to the USDA REAP grant programs, that are maybe not as well armored.
Right.
And so our association, the Distributed Wind Energy Association, is very active now in, um, pointing out that we're primarily serving the agricultural communities. We are good for farmers. Farmers like distributed wind, and it would be a shame if the programs that are accelerating deployment were cut back.
So that's all Farm Bill stuff that we've been kicking the can down the road for almost 3 years now.
So it's appropriations, it's
Yeah.
Farm Bill.
Farm Bill.
For our industry, the most important issue for us on the Farm Bill is trying to get the underutilized technology tranche
Yep.
put in there. It was created under the IRA bill, but it's not in the permanent Farm Bill legislation. So we're working to convince the committees that it should be.
Appreciate your thoughts, Mike. Thanks,
Yeah,
Heather.
thanks, Mike. Yeah, I do want to get to Paul's question, and that reminded me, for anybody that is able to come over to Washington, D.C. in a few weeks, we are having our annual conference and some Hill meetings, and we'd love to have all of you come along. We're getting a pretty good reception from both sides of the aisle to set up our meetings there, and that's a great way to have get your voice heard. So registration's still open for all of that. The hotel rooms are getting a little tight, but there's plenty of hotels in that part of town. So it's actually in Arlington, Virginia. Okay, so Paul, you were wondering what we can and cannot cover by the TAG award. So the TAG award that's active right now is focused on Oklahoma. And our goal is to assist a few dozen REAP applications this year. So we're running it as kind of a phase 0 program where we can guide applicants on how to fill out their forms. We can't do it for them. We can't pay for their environmental studies, or we can't pay their fees out of our funding, but those are costs they could incur after the application if they can just show that they've started the process. And there's a lot of free tools where you can pull down reports like the IPAC tool for endangered species. Now we are also working under 2 TAG awards that our DWEA member PICOS was awarded for the states of Vermont and Maine. And we are kind of waiting to hear if that funding is going to be slowed down at all. So we've been doing some nice GIS work to filter and reach out to farmers and landowners in the states. So really, we just encourage anyone to come to our office hours and ask questions. So if you've got an applicant that needs a little hand-holding, we're happy to help.
I would also recommend that you reach out to the manufacturers that you're interested in working with, because they may be able to help you with your applications.
Paul, did I cover your question? And you can call me afterwards. I'll put my phone number in here. And then Pace, you had a couple more things about, not sure about DOE and EPA. Okay, the multi-purpose tower. Can you put a cell satellite unit on the same tower? Boy,
I can answer that.
Depends how heavy and big it is. But go ahead, Mike.
Yes, the answer is yes. There would be a size limit, but for most mobile phone antennas or high-speed internet antennas, yes, you certainly can do that. It's been done, and there's very little, if any, radio. There's no radio interference issue between the wind turbine and the electronics. What you can't do is put a microwave beam within the rotor disc. So if you've got a microwave, it's line of sight microwave, that has to be below the rotor disc.
Sounds like you've answered that question before.
I have.
Okay,
and put a number of systems out in the field that have been working for a long time.
Nice. Well, we've hit the end of our hour here, and we really appreciate everybody's participation and interest in what we're doing here. And please do send us some feedback. And if you could, please click through the form. That helps us with our justifying our grant funds here. I'm putting it in the chat one more time. Oops. Help me. Okay, thank you, David. Just so that we can show how many people were participating today. So thanks again, and I look forward to seeing a lot of you, hopefully, in Washington, D.C. soon.
Thank you for your interest in distributed wind. Bye-bye.